Donc on va faire les rencontres en anglais aujourd'hui. Donc meetings with the directors in English today. Anglo-Saxon speaking people around me today.
When I think of language, what actually came to mind first was the fact that this film was made in response to a lack of language about people my age in their 20s in America. Right now, I feel like in popular culture, there's a lot of conversation. There's a huge dialogue about this crisis that we're all apparently going through that I think is actually really focused on an elite minority of people who are well educated and gone to great schools and now can't get jobs, right? And that this is somehow the big dilemma that everybody is experiencing. My film is in response to that and is proposing that there is actually a majority of people also in this generation who are not experiencing that at all, who did not get great educations and also can't get jobs, and also have dreams that they're trying to achieve. So when I think of language, that was my first thought. To answer your question, though, I'm usually very reluctant to talk about how scripted something was, or to talk about process in that way, only because I think whether you've seen it or not, it doesn't really matter. I think, my hope is that the story and the sound and the visuals, the imagery, can keep you engaged, kind of regardless of how we got there.
So we made the film for so little. We only made the film for $6,000. And so in order to do that, you have to, you're working with a very small crew. And we shot on Canon 5Ds, well, one Canon 5D basically. And one of the reasons we chose that camera was, one, I had a buddy who had one, so it was free. But I knew that one of the aspects of the camera was the fact that Layover takes place entirely at night. And what I was really interested in was LA at night. It's such a vibrant, lit city. I mean, there's lights everywhere, and there's different color temperatures, and there's fluorescence, and now all the street lights have been changed from the sodium vapors to the LEDs, the halogen LEDs, and so everything went from orange to like white, and it just has this really, really, it's beautiful at night, and because of the 5D and the ability to really pump up the ISO and the light sensitivity of the camera, I knew that we'd be able to shoot this movie for no money with very little lighting equipment and use what was existing in a lot of our shots.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the people that we interviewed for the film were musicians and family members of some of the more famous musicians who didn't survive the Khmer Rouge. And I think a lot of them had put the past behind them in some ways. You have to remember that during the Khmer Rouge, they were literally forced to hide their identities. So they became someone else. And then when the Khmer Rouge regime was out of power, they came back to a destroyed country, essentially, and had to start over. So that part of their life had sort of ended, and they had to start over from the beginning. And to ask them to sort of access those memories and go back to that time, it was very emotional, but I also think a lot of them really enjoyed doing it, and it was special for them to really, have it documented. And so yeah, it was a very the interview process was very intense because it was very extreme. That was a really happy times for them, and I think the music represents that for a lot of Cambodians who were alive before the war and before the Khmer Rouge. And then, of course, the interview would eventually get around to the Khmer Rouge era, and then, it took on a whole different tone, and that was also, that was difficult for obvious reasons. So the interview process was very intense, and there were times when we had to turn the camera off and give people some space. And but everyone was really generous, and I feel really fortunate that, that they opened up the way they did to be part of the film.